I'm Stephen Cooley, and welcome to the Stephen Cooley Real Estate Show. By now, you should have your tax notices in your mailbox. And on today's show, we're going to talk with Tracy Reynolds, attorney at law here in Rock Hill, and we're going to talk about what you should be looking for on those tax notices. We've also got beautiful homes on the show today for sale in your area. We've got all the homes available at our website at stephencooley.com. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This presentation of the Stephen Cooley Real Estate Show is sponsored by South Carolina Bank and Trust. We believe in South Carolina.
Hello, I'm Stephen Cooley, and welcome to the Stephen Cooley Real Estate Show. I'm very excited to have back on the show Tracy Reynolds, attorney at law here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Tracy is our Real Estate Show legal expert on real estate, and we're happy to have you back on the show, Tracy.
Thank you.
Everybody's tax notices are coming in the mail. If you own property or multiple property here in our area, you'll be getting a tax notice around what time of year?
Mid-October.
Okay. And so that tax notice comes to you, you open it, and it's got what you owe in taxes, of course, for 2010, but also you need to check and make sure some information's correct on the tax notice. We have one here in front of us. I guess the very first thing you need to make sure is your name and address, and you got the right tax notice.
Right, name and address and right tax notice. And keep in mind that if you purchased it during the year, it's still going to come out in the previous owner's name, care of you. So don't let that alarm you. It should have care of you on it, but previous owner name.
And just to remind folks, if you did buy this year, most likely the seller gave you their portion at closing on the closing statement, so you do owe the whole entire tax bill. Right,
and that is a question that we get often, phone calls to our office, as to why they're paying the entire bill, and that is exactly correct. If you look on your settlement statement, you'll see where you were credited January 1st through the date of your closing for the seller's portion of the taxes. Because the tax bill wasn't out or due at that time, it couldn't be paid, so this will allow you to pay the full bill at the end of the year.
Absolutely. If you're a seller and you sold the property and it comes to you, you need to forward it to your buyer.
I would forward it to the buyer.
Absolutely. When you open this tax notice, there's some very important things you need to check before you pay the bill, and let's talk about what those are.
The most important thing to check if you are living in the home as your primary residence is to look to see at the very top of the invoice, you'll see a 4 or 6 percentage. And if you're living in as your primary residence, you want to make sure it indicates that it is at 4%, which would be the primary residence. You would have had to apply for that if you purchased the property 2009, maybe 2010 as well.
Right. Any other property, if you don't live in it as your primary residence, rental property, second homes, commercial property, if you're on a business, vacant land, that will have 6.
That will have 6%. And just to point out, if you purchased a new construction home and the certificate of occupancy was not issued prior to January 1st, you're going to see 6% on that invoice because it's only going to be based, and you can look at the value on vacant land versus on the complete construction. Complete construction should be at the 4%.
Absolutely. And while we're talking about that 6% and 4%, because that sounds like a minor detail, but it really doubles your taxes, and you don't get the school tax exemption at the 6% rate.
Right.
So it's so important. It could even triple your taxes depending on the home. So that's very important. Tell people how they apply for the 4%.
You apply for the 4% by completing a one-page application you can obtain from your attorney or directly from the tax office. And just to note, the tax office does mail that form to you within 2 months after you've purchased the property, and then they actually mail it again if they notice that you haven't applied for it just before they send out the tax bills, because their goal is that if you do occupy it as your primary residence, they want that initial bill to be correct when it's released from their office. So you would receive that from them. You can also get it from your attorney's office, or just by walking into the tax office. You complete that application. You have to submit to them proof that is your primary residence. So that most likely would be your driver's license and vehicle registration with your home address on those items.
All right. Let's talk about the next thing is the value they've placed on my property. And if I've been in my home a while, how did they come up with that value? And what if I strongly think that my values have dropped?
If you strongly think that your value has dropped, you can file an objection with the tax office. If you have not received a notice of, and I should say if the tax office has not mailed a notice of assessment to you during that particular tax year, during the tax year 2010, then you have until January 15th to object to the value that has been applied or given to your property.
Absolutely. And one thing I've created on my website, you can go to my website and put in your address, and it will send you a market analysis of your neighborhood so you can see what the average cost is per square foot. So they do take foreclosures and short sales into consideration, but they don't put all the value on those.
Right. That's right.
So you can definitely do that at my website at stephencooley.com. So we look at the value. If we disagree with it, we can request that to be looked at or reduced.
Right.
You do run the risk of them finding out that it's worth more. So
they will.
You've got to realize they'll update an appraisal on it. When were the last appraisals done, and when will new appraisals be done?
The properties that were transferred from 2000 forward have new appraisals. They're appraised for the next year, and that next year's tax bill will be a result of the new appraisal. Any property purchased prior to 2007 were last appraised at the last reassessment year, which was those appraisals were probably 2003, 2004 comps is what we are comparables what they used. Those properties purchased before 2007 are capped in the next assessment year, which is 2011, at a 15% increase. Properties that are transferred from 2007 forward are not capped at a 15% increase as far as the assessment after the transfer, but then they will be capped at the 15% for the reassessment.
Right, absolutely. And if you don't pay your taxes, then a lien is filed on your property, and your name and the address of the property gets to appear in the local paper this coming spring. So you definitely want to get those paid and get those paid on time before they charge late fees and that kind of stuff.
Right. The first penalty is January 16th. And you can also, if you don't get your tax bill, you can go online at yorkcountygov.com, and those bills are available there as well. So just to make sure, you should be getting a tax bill with around October 15th. If you don't, you can contact your attorney or the tax office.
Tracy, great information. I know when October 15th comes out, everybody has questions about these tax bills, and you've really answered it for folks. When this airs, they'll probably have them in their hands. So great information. Thanks for giving us your time and your knowledge. We really appreciate that. We've got beautiful homes for sale on today's show. If you've got any questions, you can contact Tracy Reynolds at her law firm. If you're looking to close a property, she's one of the best in town. Let's tell folks how to reach you, Tracy.
You can reach me at my office. The phone number is 803-328-0150, or my website is available at threynolds.com.
Thanks so much. Please stay tuned for homes for sale in your area.